So like, maybe not.
Now you sound like Don.
Well, I'm not going to say anything.
Find out.
I'm not going there tonight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's not break the mood here. Thank you all for coming. This is one of our working meetings that we have, obviously the first Wednesday in June. Is your microphone on? Oh darn. No, it's okay.
You missed all the good stuff.
Should I try it again?
I don't
Okay.
turn it on until after the pledge, so I'm good.
So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let us rise and please pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we're going to take a roll call, please.
Andrew Benson. Here. Katrina Binkowitz. Here. Doug Day.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. First order of business tonight is the resolution approving the public interest order and establishment of sewer district number 1. As you know, we had a public hearing in our last meeting, but we did not vote on this or address it beyond that because we wanted to give ample time in case anybody had any comments, questions, or written statements or anything of that nature. Today I have not received any additional information, and I'll ask board members if they have. Nope. Okay, so having said that, would someone like to make a motion to approve this?
I'll move.
Sorry? Yes, we have 2 speakers.
Okay.
Yes, yes, we have 2 speakers.
Okay.
I'm just so enthusiastic here. Would you like to go through the speaker first, or can we take the motion and then before we take the vote, please?
You can do it either way.
Deb moves and I'll second it.
Any comments? Guy, would you like to help us with this part, please?
Okay, well, because we're not actually building a plant or processing effluent in the town, and because this is only a 525-foot, give or take, main, it's actually classified out as a short EAF, as a type unlisted action, excuse me. And the action is the developer-funded sewer main extension through the village and into South Lansing, mainly to serve particular recreational facilities and project sites. It has a 0 financing cost, so thus no fiscal impact. And part 1 has been completed and reviewed. Additional mapping was done just to make sure some of the little green areas weren't actually within the district because they show wetlands and other things. None of them are. And so the Part 2 asks a series of questions that the town is supposed to answer. And I have to find my Part 2. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's in this stack somewhere. Sorry I was late. I had a minor emergency in my family. So the question is, will the regulations create a material conflict with land use or zoning regulations? The answer is no or small impact. In fact, that expanding sewer in South Lansing was part of the recently approved comp plan. 2, will the proposed action result in a change in use or intensity of the land? There would be a small impact there because sewer would allow for the density that the zoning already permits, but it doesn't actually change what would happen in terms of the density. 3, would the proposed act impair the character or quality of existing community? The answer was no or small. 4, will it have an impact on a CEA? No or small. Will it result in an existing change in traffic or mass transit or biking or walkways? Again, no or small. A 525-foot main would not increase traffic except for a little bit during construction. Will the proposed action cause increased uses in energy or failure to use energy opportunities? No or small. Will it affect public or private water or public or private wastewater treatment utilities? The impact would be small but ultimately beneficial because you're not going to be putting effluent into the ground to eventually sort of filter downhill to the lake. Will it impair the character or quality of historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No, at least not per the mapping. Will it result in an adverse change in natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, fauna? No, most of it is areas that are in fields in the main is just a stretch along the state highway. Will it result in an increase for erosion, flooding, or drainage? No or small, but the stormwater requirements for doing the excavation will take care of any potential erosion. And will it create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? And I clicked no or small impact simply because I believe that the overall benefit here is to increase and help the environment and reduce environmental impacts, not to create more. And so there's a long explanation of that in slightly longer form in part 3, talking about temporary construction impacts and how certain things are mitigated. And it recommends a negative declaration if you agree with those conclusions in part 2.
Okay. Any questions? So should we move to accept this? Any more discussion? If not, I guess we'll vote on this then.
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz. Yes. Doug Bates.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Do our distinguished colleagues have any comments or anything? I mean, this is a pretty good day for everyone. Please, Don, go ahead, 'cause you've been going at this a lot longer than I have.
Let me welcome you to the village of Lansing, a historic first, I think. And so enjoy our place. Look forward to more of these meetings. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Jack? Tim?
Too exciting.
Now pinch yourself now.
If you get excited about sewers, I am, I guess.
This isn't even a sewer, this is a little chunk.
Well, good. I think this is another good step as we work together. 3 different municipalities between the village of Lansing, village of Cedar Heights, and the town of Lansing as we continue. I think this is, I believe in symbiotic relationships, not parasitic. I think this is, once again, a very, very good step in that continuation. So I look forward to doing more of these projects together and other stuff. I think for our residents, I use the word hopefully as usual. Hopefully this will work out well. I thank especially Jack for making a great contribution to this, and also to Cuba Orchard and that group and the BYC group. So, like I said, look forward to more of these endeavors together where we have positive results. So thank you all. Having said that, we'll move on to our next item here. It has to do with the copier. Are we comfortable?
Did you want to vote on this one?
You can approve it.
We voted on both the seeker and the resolution?
Both the seekers and the
We
rest.
just have-
Okay, but just making sure that,
I think they did the
No, I'll make sure.
same.
Yeah.
we had this problem last week.
Business. So, having said that, we have concluded that bit of business. The next item of business is the copier. And are we comfortable talking about this anymore? Are we
We can
comfortable?
talk about it, I'm not ready to vote on it yet, because I still haven't seen the 3 different bids that we got. I know that Pat worked hard on it, and I still have some questions that are, unanswered. One of which I don't know if guys has had a chance to think about. But the contract specifically says that it is exclusively subject to the laws of New Jersey. And I'm not sure if we as a town can enter a contract that's exclusively governed by another state's laws. For example, we're adding a paragraph in there that's required by New York State law. And the general municipal law says even if we didn't add that paragraph would apply. So what would happen if New Jersey says that those paragraphs, those stipulations are null and void? That puts the town in a weird position. I'm not sure how that works. And I need to know how to do that before I agree to a contract that states that.
Okay. Is that something that you want to address tonight, Guy, or shall we?
Well, I would have to assume my most recent email was not read, because it addressed at least some, if not most or all of it.
I've not seen it yet.
Right. So as to the question of the executory clause, it is required to be in there, and the bank has agreed to put it in. And so has Easter. And as far as the venue clause, I didn't even bother asking about that because they don't have the ability to sue us in New Jersey because New York State law and public policy place venue in Tompkins County or a corporate territory or just jurisdiction over Tompkins County. So I'm not sure what other questions are there, but fire away. I mean,
Well, the other question is that I'm seeing that we're supposed to have 3 different bids on the item like this, and I haven't seen any of them.
I think those were in an email too that was sent out earlier
Yeah,
today.
it's an email out earlier today.
It didn't have 3, it talked about the process, but I didn't see other bids. I saw, he said,
Actually, 3.
Yeah, they were attached.
They were
okay, I haven't seen that also. I just need to wait till the next meeting and have a chance to review that stuff.
So, is our copier working at this point in time? I just want, we don't want to handicap the town's business.
We're working on the one that's on loan for us right now, I believe. That one, and actually, that one got us through the booklets that were being printed, which is a biggie for us this year. And that one had some bugs in it, which got worked out. So, I don't know, I would rely more on Laura as far as that, if we are in jeopardy of this. I also want to respect Joe's and any other board's concerns, but also does that make us vulnerable or not? I think we have one copy right there that can probably get us 2 more
Just wanted to
weeks.
make sure we had.
I'm sure that the one we have will give us some more weeks, but.
What I would recommend then is that,
Yeah, I mean, right now, we're just using it with no contract or anything, so I mean, really, it's up to them. If they decide they don't want it there anymore, we don't have a contract with them, they might come in and pull it. I mean, I'm not sure.
And who is it with now?
Eastern.
Eastern.
Oh, okay.
Right, it was. Contract with Eastern as well.
Yeah. Right?
I'm not sure who the old contract was with. I know who
Well,
it was with.
that was my question.
Oh.
My impression
I'm not
is
sure
they're
about
saying
that.
something about that we found a new deal, but I'm not positive.
Xerox.
Might well be.
Xerox.
But the word I got back is that the bank is willing to add the governmental addendum, which takes care of many of the lease finance issues and procurement issues. There's an addendum that they found and will add, and that they're willing to accept the executory clause. The concern on the, for lack of a better term, seller side of the transaction is that the town was given 30 days free use to try it out, and that expired, I think, well over a month ago.
Yeah.
So from the lender's perspective or the distributor's perspective, we're already well past our time. I don't know if another 2 weeks will or will not matter. I don't know if the deal would get rewritten based on whatever rates or programs may change in the intervening 2 weeks. I'm not sure what additional information you could obtain in 2 weeks to further document it, but I'm sure you could get something, and so you're free to wait.
There is a page in your packet that says what our current investment is, and it gives Eastern's proposed investment, and Patrick had actually talked them down. If you noticed under Eastern's proposed investment, where it's $1,108.34 for 39 months, Patrick actually worked with them several times to get it down to where it's in the resolution where it states the 39 monthly payments of $789. So they're actually giving us an exceptional deal.
Right, the second quote was from Office Equipment Source Inc. and it came in at $970 and change.
You have this all printed out, Brad?
Yeah, and then there was a quote from Rico, which had
Can you pass that around?
a click-through rate. Sure.
So we're currently using one that's sort of on loan for free.
That's right, that's the Eastern one we're using now, which is the one, the proposed one is,
That's the one
What
that
were
I
you
gave
using
them.
before that?
I think it was the Xerox one.
And did
And
that,
that's what our current investment is, that's our total monthly payment at the top of this is our current one,
This is
that,
the summary of
the old one that is now sitting in the kitchen.
The one that has a lower monthly
not
rate
being
has
used
a
because
per
it's-
charge fee
You
for
don't have a
It's the
contract.
down,
copies.
the down.
And based on usage, that makes it a lot more expensive
It
than
breaks
this
a lot
one.
of people
For the
along.
calculations.
Thank
I
you.
didn't do the calculations though.
In their experience, we found that Pat's very thorough in his comparisons. That's the point I'm making.
Well, if you get through the booklet run, which is usually one of its main responsibilities, you know, the booklet run, if you get through that, it'd be acceptable. It's almost like, to me, that is like the initiation. And like I said, if there were bugs in it, it would have been worked out by now. I found, for instance, when I printed a long sheet, and what we found out was that I had to send it to a different printer. The printers on my computer, and it was done. So it seems as though there's been a trial period where they've worked this stuff out. And he has encouraged us to do this, and he is our IT guy also. So there is a bit there that you rely on his expertise to do this. So once again, it's a matter of how the whole board feels comfortable moving forward.
Well, here's what I would like to see. I would like to see in paragraph number 2, warranty stricken, because there isn't a warranty of service contract.
There is a warranty.
I think so, there's no warranty.
Well, the banks don't provide a manufacturer's warranty, and the distributor doesn't provide a manufacturer's warranty, but the company that manufactures the product provides a warranty, and that's where the service agreement with Eastern comes in. So when you go buy a car and go to CFCU or the trust company, they don't warrant the car. They're just giving you the money.
Yeah, but both of those documents, both from Easton and the other, both say no warranty.
Well, I know. I mean, when you buy a fridge from Sears, it says it too, but you get this pamphlet with the product that says Frigidaire is giving you a product warranty.
Okay.
So we can look at that warranty and request it if you want. I'm not sure that.
Well, no, I understand we're getting a service contract for the whole time anyway, so the warranty doesn't really matter. But I think we need to document the 2 different bids that we got on the copier in the resolution. So we look at-
Typically in resolutions, we don't include that because they go with the voucher as opposed to the resolution.
Yeah, but I think it's important, since we're approving this as a specific item, we should say, we looked at the 2 different bids, we understand that we're choosing this one because over the service use is going to come in much cheaper.
I thought we relied on the person in charge of it to be Patrick.
We relied on him to do it, I think we should.
Right.
So your statement is you want to state that there was a competitive
Yeah,
estimate process that was followed.
yeah.
So you wanted to say that we comply with the procurement requirements, like paragraph 1 of the resolution said. So it's already there.
But
It
it
just
doesn't,
doesn't say what the other quotes were in all the details.
Why does that matter?
I don't know. Because it creates a record. There is a record, but maybe it should be in the resolution too. That's for you guys to decide.
Can we vote on it and add it, or do we have to?
Yeah. You can add whatever you want.
I know. I do.
Add
Very simple.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Add your
very simple.
sentence
yeah.
and vote on it.
Yeah, this is easy.
Figure out what you want to write up for that sentence.
Okay, give me a second.
One second. Just go ahead and vote.
Now, he's
Oh
gonna
my
add,
God.
he's gonna
I
add a
got-
sentence.
I'm going to take on the crap. You guys want to talk about something else for a minute, that's fine too.
Okay.
How about them Yankees? Yeah. Don't tell me, you're Red Sox fans of that, but it's still very good also.
How about the wedding?
What?
What the Supreme Court just ruled on vetting. That's pretty interesting.
Amazing.
Complicated.
Yeah.
Something today. Complicated. Well, that never been.
So, you know, we don't have, do we have gambling in New York? Let's see, autos, scratch offs, Keno, but I guess those aren't, is that gambling? I don't know.
Have it down.
There.
But they were talking about how it could be so quickly done, you could bet on whether or not the next person dribbling is going to make a 3-pointer or a 2-pointer.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, whoa, whoa. And I thought I would spend all that time doing it.
I guess that that's your world, it's, wow,
Yeah.
wow. I guess you can bet on a quarter, what the points are per quarter, or whatever.
On one player, losers.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting choice. We don't have a casino in Lansing.
I don't know, Don, do you think? We're on a roll here, we we just did something we never thought would happen. Maybe lightning can hit twice. What do you think?
Never know.
You could eliminate taxes.
Pardon me?
You could eliminate taxes.
That's what they said.
Yeah, imagine
Not
that.
in New York.
He said lightning, not the apocalypse.
That's right.
That wouldn't happen in New York.
Okay, whereas town officers and employees received bids for 3 different office companies for copiers and chose Eastman because it was the lowest cost over the life of the machine, or life of use, something like that.
That's the least.
Was it the lowest cost or was it the best?
That's
The lowest cost over
It
the
was
life.
close enough.
Okay.
Lowest cost over the life.
And
Yeah.
that's it. Okay.
Plus it's here.
I want to give that to Laura.
Okay, we're adding that in where?
I just put it as a second paragraph. It's easier.
In the second paragraph?
Another whereas.
Another
Another whereas?
Yes.
Don't
Okay,
forget
and
to
can you
read
repeat
the
that for me?
That's right.
You said that was a weird word.
How do you-
It's nothing personal, but it's their own language, right?
We'll try the word therefore without the E at the end and see how many people will correct you.
Yeah.
3 different.
Cause therefore was the lightning struck a second time, which statistically lightning strikes a location for a reason, so it is more likely to strike a second time at a precise location, but
Copiers.
modern mythology says it doesn't happen.
Things you learn at these meetings.
Whatever product could be causing this right there probably still exists when it's done.
And chose Easton.
That's why they have these huge lightning systems on those football stadiums, because they're giant steel structures.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They get struck by lightning.
I think they'd be a draw, wouldn't they, huh? Yeah.
It's also why they put lightning rods on big barns and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And even if you go to certain national forests and stuff, they have them running right down the trunks of the trees a lot. Keep these if you want.
Either way.
You might be a good student.
Okay, so we're adding a whereas, so second whereas town officers and employees reviewed bids from 3 different office companies for leasing copier and chose Eastern because it was the least expensive over life of lease. And then we'll go into the third whereas. Everybody agree?
Okay.
Need a motion?
So we'll make a motion?
I'll move it.
Doug seconded it already.
Move it as amended and then
Ah.
second.
So remove it as amended.
You guys amended.
Sorry.
Did it? Easy with the button, Man, we're gonna get through a lot tonight, I can tell. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second.
Okay?
Any discussion? Okay. All right.
Andrew Benson? Katrina Dinklage?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. No pun intended. This is for the resolution authorizing execution of East Shore Circle Minor subdivision stormwater agreements and easements.
I'll move that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Guy, do you want to give us some background on that?
Well, subdivisions, especially those that are going to have permanent stormwater infrastructure, which is pretty much almost everything these days. Phase 2 stormwater requirements is mandated by the EPA and the DEC mandate that the town have a mechanism in place to routinely monitor and protect these stormwater facilities to make sure they function for their intended purpose. So when it's on private property, generally we need some sort of easement when the subdivision is approved so that we have access to do the required inspections in the event of a 100-year storm, or to take action in the event the stormwater facility is filled up with concrete and a pool poured over top of it. When it's a permanent structure like a swale or a stormwater pond that's going to be dedicated to the town, that's also sometimes done by easement, sometimes done by title, depends on the developer. So what this basically does is approve the swale easement to convey water to the stormwater ponds and facilities, and it gives the town the easement rights and authority to sign the stormwater operation and maintenance agreement, which gives us the ability to go in and do long-term stormwater maintenance and charge it back to the benefited properties if needs be.
And there you go.
Well, their stormwater maintenance agreements can be pretty onerous documents, but this was a small subdivision and we only had one facility and one group of swales, so it's not what you would see if it were 30 or 40 lots on the hillside, but it's still an easement, so it still has to be approved. It's part of the planning board's condition before they can get building permits and COs for the subdivision.
They had,
Some housekeeping.
correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the one they discussed when they had the drainage problems in that area. Wasn't it in that East Shore Circle area, they were concerned about that?
Yes, and the developer, I believe, though I can't swear to it, I believe, built an oversized pond to help alleviate some of that from the uphill side. That's my recollection, and that would be consistent with what my impression has been of that developer over the years.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, Laura?
I was gonna-
Discussion? Oh,
Oh,
I
sorry.
was going to say, they also agreed to widen the right-of-way access to create additional infrastructure for the water line and the swales.
Right,
From
there
the
were some other
traditional 60 to
things that were
75
done
feet, yeah.
to help with any future needs in case we needed infrastructure or more stormwater in the area. Is Jack here?
He's right here?
Oh, okay. Yep, I think he went above and beyond Call of Duty in terms of this pond, but
He has a reputation of doing that.
I think I just said that, but he
Yeah, we've had some very, very, very wonderful projects with Jack in the past because of his willingness to do that. I mean, the sewer is one of them. So thank you, Jack. Any other discussion?
Not unless people have questions about stormwater regulations, which I would discourage at this point.
So, Laura, are you ready?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Lee.
Yes. Next resolution is the approving of Cargill Consolidated Water District Extension. I think we've had a discussion about that in the past, but someone will entertain a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, Laura?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Lee.
Yes. Item number 8, resolution approving town center consolidated water district extension, very similar what we've done with Cargill. Someone like to entertain a motion?
I'll move it.
I have a second. I'll second that. Any discussion? Laura?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Lee.
Yes. Number 9 is the resolution authorizing purchase of the track skid steer. To bring people up to speed with this, Joe and I met with Cricket today, and basically this, and I'll pardon everybody ahead of time, I'm not a mechanic, but I'll try to get this through. It's like one of these little Bobcat front-end loaders they use for a lot of, you probably can tell us more about this than I can. You'll probably
I
use
fit
it.
into barns really
Do you
well.
have your Class B license? We might use you. Anyways, the idea of this is to be used in the water district. And the idea is it can get maneuvered in to places obviously that the bigger things can't. The metal tracks tend to tear things up. This one would have rubberized. What is significant about this is that, and this is not a pressure, this is just FYI, you see what the price of this is, around $57,000. For us to rent this, it's going to cost us $5,500. So if we do district number 4, which is going with Drake Road, it'll be $5,500. Keep in mind also that if we do for number 5, which is coming up soon, which looks like that probably might go through because everyone said yes, that's another $5,500. If number 3 eventually comes through, that would probably take more than renting because that's 4.5 miles. So you start adding up these 5,500s, plus the price is going to go up. This one he has here is priced about $7,000 lower. So the amount of money starts to add up as far as do we rent these things or do you buy it?
It's a very handy.
Plus you need it for some of your existing stormwater maintenance, where you have limited access because of the locations of the pond.
Now, our discussion was about using it exclusively for the water districts.
Okay.
And if that changes, then I think there's be an adjustment. Right now, you seem to be, I mean, do you want, you were at the table, and I have to make sure that you're.
Yeah, and that was my impression, was it was 90-95%. The water district occasionally might get used for the town stuff, but then you use some of the town stuff for the water district stuff, and it balances out.
So an equal barter system in that regard.
Yeah, close enough.
Essentially, no.
Don, you had
Is that price on state contract?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a question, is the new model year coming out at a higher state contract bid? Because he said it was gonna cost 7,000 more if
Yes.
we didn't get this one.
My discussion with him was yes.
Okay,
Now, I know this, and I hate to say, you have to do by midnight tonight, otherwise, you know, but on the other hand, I'm also relying on our department head's experience, just like I did with Patrick. If he sees that it's a value for the town and taxpayers, I will listen to them. I won't blindly follow them, but I will listen to them and ask them to defend your position why we should do this. And it's not because we have skid steer envy or anything else, or somebody else has it, or we have other stuff, or truck envy. I mean, but anyways, so having said all that, I rely on his judgment for that, because once again, he's looking at what's the best value for the town. Even though
well,
this
let me
was.
put it this way. If we did the first 2 water districts with this and then sold the thing off, it would probably cost us less than renting it and doing the 2 water districts. So even if we just went that far, the town would come out ahead, or at least the water district would in this case. But we've got visions of another water district that may or may not happen, and future uses that make sense.
And if the village wants to play with our new toy, they can. You already have one? Why am I not surprised? So I think we've discussed this enough. Any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, Laura?
We need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Sure.
Thought we had one.
I thought we did.
We had a motion and a second.
Yeah, that's why we're in this discussion, but that's okay.
She
I don't think we did.
And I second it.
He moved.
No, that was the consolidated water
I
district.
stand corrected, and I don't want to lose your minute, so who
So I
wants to
have
jump
to-
in?
Joe said yes, so I.
Oh my God, I got a lot to write down.
Okay. Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Katrina Binkowitz,
Yes.
Doug Gay,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore, Edward Levine.
Yes. Item number 10, this is our discussion topic, Milton Meadows. Michael, do you want to chime in on this, what our status is, our updates? We had a nice conference call with them today.
Sure. I think, as you know, there's a project that's moving along quickly. The town is working on certain aspects of it. The engineers for the company is going to be back on site again doing some test boring for their septic system. Again, we're working with Tompkins County on the health departments. They've gone through several different iterations. They're redefining and redesigning their septic system, so that's in their final stages. We have, as you probably remember, T.G. Miller's going to work on the south side of the intersection at Woods Edge. We have to make some improvements there. We do have the highway department who will be working on our side of the road. The design for the project is going to take care of the highway from Route 34 north off to the second driveway that's going in. We had a conversation today about, as you recall, I forwarded you a request from the developers about the conveyance of a letter of credit or a bank line that basically agrees to the incorporation of the original town road section. As you may recall, they would like to see that they can do their construction for the first phase. We broke it into different groups so that they would like to be able to put the road in complete with the water lines, the sub-base, the grading, and the asphalt base in place, and then don't put the top on it until they finish going around the backside. So they would set it up so that they would do the front driveway up to the first driveway as a interim step, and then force all of the work to go in the backside. So again, they're looking for some support from the town board. I guess Guy would probably need to prepare some kind of a motion or a resolution that would authorize the town board saying it's okay to issue a letter of credit for the highway before they finish completing the project as the typical of the town.
The letter of credits to make sure they actually do it.
Yes, so what it would be is an engineer's estimate from their Viceros, their engineers. We would then review it, look at it, and make sure, again, it would be a letter of credit for the complete project. So again, they would do 95% of the work, they would just have to put the asphalt top course on the last 2.5 inches or whatever it is. Again, we're very confident that they will do it, they will get it done. We talked in great detail about timelines and trying to do the first 2 buildings, get those up and running, and then keep going in terms of the project itself. But, the other thing we talked about was the purchase agreement. Basically, is an execution of the purchase contract that the town's already agreed to. They're hoping to have their closing for financing done on October 31st. They would like to get their building permits right around that time. Ed's comment was, well, can you buy the land before the closing of the financing? So they've agreed that they can probably move that up. We haven't set a firm date as yet. But the town will acquire basically the entire parcel with basically like a flag lot, so that the roadway where it would go in would be part of the parcel. It would be defined so that that would be the future town road. They would acquire that parcel and then dedicate that parcel back to the town. When we calculated the original purchase contract, it was 13.5 acres at $25,000 per acre, so it was $337,500. We did not include the footprint of the road in that initial concept. So the next thing will really be the subdivision of the parcel from the town land to that parcel, so that can happen as well. So probably at a future town board meeting, we'll have to, I don't know, the planning board will do the subdivision. I think the subdivision was already done as part of the site plan review, so right. It was all merged.
Do we have to sign off on that as a town board?
Well, the issue is that there's a parallel provision in village law, though not as exactly onerous, but under town law, you can't get a building permit unless one of several things happens. One is it's on a suitably improved or mapped road. Suitably improved means as would support emergency vehicles in case there's a construction accident, a housing accident, whatever. Or they can post a letter of credit, some form of security or performance bond, which is often what is commonly done, to guarantee completion of the road should they fail. Or they can apply for a specific type of waiver that's issued by the town board, which creates an open development area, which they don't need because they already have a site plan approval. So they want to get their building permits prior to the road being completed. So section 280 law of town, 280-small a of town law says they can only, if they post a bond, and have to put them out, determined and approved by the town board. So planning board resolutions usually routinely say that stuff goes to the town. Anything that's going to be dedicated, posted, guaranteed, permanent infrastructure, that's something the town board reviews, and they put a condition in to say approve it. So Carol I just saw it, had sent me a sample irrevocable letter of credit from the New York Bank that they use for a project in the town of Sweden. I haven't read it, I'm not going to read it now. But she's saying this would be the form that we would use. Is it okay? And again, as long as it's an irrevocable letter of credit
From New York Bank.
from a bank that's saying we have the money here and it won't be released until you authorize it. As long as the estimate is realistic, given the actual cost of construction, that would be fine. It would fulfill what the statute requires.
Would the planning board, a lot of times when they review it and recommend to the town board, or does it go strictly to the town board?
It's already passed. It's already passed the planning board, so it would go. The town board would just have to approve it because it would be Lynn that would issue the building permits, and unless the road is there, so it's really administrative at the town level at this point. If they were going to go back and amend their site plan or amend their subdivision plan somehow, then they go back to the planning board, but not for building permits and stuff like that.
So this bond they have there, that's the guarantee that the road will be built?
If they don't finish it, then we can use that money to finish it.
Right.
Kind of like Nova Lane.
Exactly.
Yes, and they went back and the last town board released the money so they couldn't get it.
Well, that wasn't going to be valid anyway, because they were
Expired.
20-something years
Well,
old.
that was 1986, so in
Yeah.
all fairness, we were creative and came up with positive solutions and moved forward from there. But I think this will prevent that from happening.
The only thing is I'd like to have someone like Cricket go over and see if the money's the right amount, because if it's their
Yep.
engineer deciding how much they think it should cost.
Exactly.
But I think Cricket could look at it and say,
Right.
how much that chunk of road would cost.
Either Cricket or Dave Herrick's office, someone who knows roadway construction costs should look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kirk was in our meeting today.
yeah, I think this is simple enough that I think he'd understand it, because he does that kind of stuff.
Well, he also has the he also is the one that
He has
has
to
to
approve.
give the approval before we approve it when the road's completed, so I think this falls right in line with that, absolutely. Okay, anything else for Milton Meadows?
They're going to have their financing organization come to Lansing in July. We tried to set up a meeting at the library as a place to meet because the town board room is having court at that point. So they're going to meet with their financing agencies and try to get everything set up. So they're
Do
very...
we have specific dates on that yet? or-
Yes,
I mean, not that it's,
July 17th, I believe. I can look.
okay.
Yep, no, it's not. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that was July 17 was the date.
Okay,
That's why
I
we're...
thought.
So.
good.
That would be a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
But overall, I think the project's moving along. They're trying to get drawings in so that Lynn can do the building code reviews. They're going to have 3 different designs plus the community building. So there's basically 4 different floor plans that we'll review and approve.
And the criteria still is, first choice is disabled veterans?
That's the highest priority, yes.
So we're trying to get the word out the best we can that to all the different veteran organizations, that when it's appropriate, please apply.
Is it disabled veterans or veterans?
All veterans. Veterans have priority. The other thing we've got to do is come up with a name for the town road section. So,
I suggested Cricket's Way.
How about Ed Lane?
No, he's in Dryden.
He's all right.
Use EDD.
Yeah, ED, there you go. Okay, anything else, my friend, are we okay?
I think that's...
Okay. Next item of business is plan, what is the next step? Maybe Michael, maybe you stay up here, I don't know. So what is the next step for, I mean, one of the things is that, does the town board have to charge the planning board moving forward? I don't know. Michael, perhaps you can give us some, I'll stay up here, I'm sorry, you meant to go. You know, it's been a month since we passed this, and I think there's things that can probably at least start a discussion before we, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. So I'm just looking for ideas here, what's the next step moving forward on this? I mean, I have my own personal opinion, but I'll hear other people also.
Well, I think, as you know, the comprehensive plan talks about a lot of different compounds and things of that nature. I know there was some conversation about creating some new advisory groups and things of that nature, which I've not gotten involved with. Probably the biggest item that should be considered is the update of the land use ordinance. And again, the planning board has offered to take the lead on that. I think is with the comp plan, you know, they certainly worked with it on a day-to-day basis in terms of their site plan reviews, things of that nature. I know when I first started here, Guy had a list of 100 items that they wanted to change.
Wasn't my list, but
Well,
yeah.
no,
Some of it
had
was.
the list.
It was 100, it came out, it was called the list of 100, but it was actually about 109.
So, but there were a lot of things that we've got kicking around that should be updated. So, and again, Guy and I have had brief conversations, but do you start over or do you tweak what you have? And I think We've got certain areas that probably need to have new definitions because of the proposed changes in terms of the way zoning is done today versus what was done back then. We need to either simplify some things or make things a little bit more detailed. So the question is, do you want to have the planning board start the process and again, have public meetings, get public input, start to draft things? Do you want to have just the staff do it and present it to the town board or the planning board? Again, these are the conversations that the town board really can have.
Go ahead.
I guess I feel the more open we can be to everyone in Lansing, the better.
And when the planning board or the town, whoever is talking about these topics, it'd be nice to know that there is an agenda about the areas we're talking about, so the public, if they're interested, can look and see if that's a good meeting to go to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just make it.
Yeah,
You
all
have your
meetings
input,
are,
because-
all meetings are public open meetings, and again,
Right, but I
they've
think-
always been public.
I think what Katrina's saying, instead of saying we're talking about the comprehensive plan, which is what the agenda items would say, people say, oh, that's too broad. You know,
But
be more
define more
defined.
specific.
We're talking about Route 34B and potential
I
code changes or
I
whatever,
agree.
areas.
I think one of the issues you have getting the public involved is when you talk about Lansing, they're like, oh, that's too broad. When you talk about their neighborhood,
Right.
suddenly that's of interest. So, there's a lot of discussion in the plan about how to redo the lake shore, how to redo the ag areas. And I think if you just concentrate on chunks like that, in which there's a real constituent that will come out and, be a part of that, because we want buy-in from the people who are being affected by these changes.
And it's good for them to hear the discussion process by people who are, expert in the process and the thoughts and how decisions, people come to decisions.
And it makes it easier for the planning board to listen to the comment, because if you're listening to, I'm talking about the ag section up here, and someone else is talking about Route 34 down here, and someone else is talking about Lake, it's hard to pull that all together and,
I agree, it makes a lot of sense to kind of sectionize things, break them apart. Probably the biggest change, as you know, is going to be the creation of the agricultural district, because we don't have one currently. So that is pretty well defined with the ag plan, but there's going to be some refinement in terms of the final map and how it works out, what's included and not. And as you know, the ag committee's been looking at different things and trying to get some input. We've had some input from Cornell law students as to looking at some things.
but of course that ought to be put off until at least the fall, because the farmers aren't going to be involved. They'll be pissed off if you do it over August.
Sure.
Yes.
So would it make sense to possibly have the staff come up with some suggestions as to
A prioritized list?
prior to the list, because let's face it, it's going to take longer with the public input than it would with the staff input. So, which I don't necessarily agree or disagree with. But I'm saying the staff comes up with somebody that knows what's happening and what can happen or should happen, and say, well, this is a couple of proposals that we have via what we thought of as far as a B district or a commercial / residential or residential / commercial district, whatever it may be, and come up with that where they can say, let's discuss this isn't set in stone, but what's your input at the public level?
That's a great idea. So,
Because I don't disagree with it. I mean, all meetings are open and all that, but I saw it hands-on with the comp plan where we'd have these meetings and it was done in-depth through the planning board, and all of a sudden people hear something and they show up, and then it's all hell breaks loose at that point. So I think if they come up with a distinct possibilities of what happens, so they can discuss
this
it.
area, there's been these problems, this is why we're reviewing it, these are our proposals, now let's talk about it.
We can have
Yeah,
a meeting or 2 meetings of input in some regard. So I mean, I think that would, I'm not trying to speed the process up any more than I know how long it takes.
we want to streamline where we can streamline.
Well, and face it, there's a lot of people, there's people in Lansing that have been waiting for this for years. And so, I mean, I'm not singling people out, but there are people that, can bring business to the Lansing as opposed to just housing. And business to Lansing is better than housing.
So, I mean, typically there's different ways to do the land use updates, you either can do it in-house with your staff, you can do it through a committee, or you can hire a professional consultant who just does that, you know, so again, but that's a monetary conversation, you know, so.
But we're still going through another public hearing, or several public hearings with the public, you know, and so, I mean, I don't disagree with anything at that point, but the more meetings we have, it's paralysis through analysis again, and I think that's, unfortunately, it's government, and that's what happens, so, but I'd like to see it, just for no other reason than I think we can, you know, get some positive movement with staff coming up with it and then saying, this is what we came up with, what do you think? Can we tweak it?
That's Maria.
Well, here's my question. I don't think we can put it on staff right now, because, you know, I talked to Lynn, and he doesn't have time to be rewriting.
I'm not worried about Lynn, I'm thinking the planning.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the planning board's schedule, and, you know, they're pretty booked already. I got a packet this thick of stuff to read for Monday. And I'm worried that, you know, all these boards that we're looking at, everybody's got a full plate right now. And would it be worth hiring a company to come in and help us do some of this? I don't know what their costs are, I don't
It's
know.
worth looking at.
It's worth looking at, but once again, how long does that delay the process?
No, I think it speeds it up, because you have,
Well, it does, but how long does it delay the process of looking at it and get 3 bids so we have a procurement policy now?
well, I'm not saying necessarily get 3 bids, I would give one
Well,
right
yeah.
now and say if it's in the ballpark. If it's costing, you know, $800,000 for them to do it, I don't think we got the money to consider that. You know, if they're talking $40,000 to do it, now we're saying, hey, this could speed things up. And I have no idea what the cost is.
Well, I'm open to anything. I mean, I personally, I'd just say, let's get the process moving now.
I think there is a punch list. There is a punch list.
Yes.
The planning board has a punch list, Lynn has this punch list. Let's make a summary punch list and have the planning board and the department prioritize on that. We can have a subcommittee that takes the recommendation and, you know, should this be the next discussion at the planning board meeting, and should this neighborhood be invited?
What I'd like to see, these are all good comments, what I'd like to see is that, I know that talking to Tom, they're anxious to get going on this. I would like, I mean, once again, our town board has to charge them with, okay, what are you going to do? The first thing I would ask them to do is, first of all, if you feel that this is something you can do, is come up with a schedule for us. That would be the first homework assignment I say. What are your priorities here that you need to do as a board? Open to the public. On your website, you have now the comp plan. There's no reason why you can't have it changed to topics of discussion. Next step. And start that next step right now and say, here's an explanation of what the next steps are. And post what the topic would be of that. Is it Ridge Road? Is it B1 district? Is it whatever? And even if you have to put a definition of what B1 is now. Okay, so you learn as you go. And people can see the difference between an R1 and a B1 and an RA. Okay, I mean, if they want. If they don't want to do that, but the option's there. I'd ask the planning board, are you up to this? In a perfect world, what I'd like to see is have our 2 planning board liaisons along with a code officer sit at the table with the planning board, work it out with input from the public, come up with a consensus so the other 3 town board people can look at that once it's passed by the town board, learn from each other as far as this goes, where your comfort zones are, compromise with each other so we represent all of Lansing, and move forward together as a unified voice which you feel comfortable with together. I think that in itself sends a very strong message that we're all very comfortable at the end with this product. Now, having said that, you still got to get another vote from one of us to do that. So, but I think I trust we are diverse, but we're also the same. And I think having that input along with Lynn, along with the planning board, all their experience, I'd like to see what that product is.
I like a committed team approach
Well,
to create something that's efficient yet inclusive.
I like the idea of starting off with, you know, charging the planning board to come up with a schedule. What do you think you can do? What would be the priorities? How would you?
I mean, can you do it? If you can't do it, you send it out to somebody else and then they look at it afterwards or whatever. I mean, I'd like to have them have a chance for their input. What do you think we should do?
They should always be the first.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, Mike, how hard would it be to get a rough estimate of how much this kind of stuff would cost if we subbed it out?
Well, I'll tell you that the RFPs that I've looked at from other municipalities that do this kind of work range between 50,000 and 150,000.
Okay.
So, I mean,
It's a chunk of change.
it's a lot.
It's a lot more, yeah.
Now, I'll tell you this, that when I applied for the job here, it was to write the comprehensive plan for the town of Lansing. And when I met with the supervisor at the time, I said, do I write the plan or does the committee write the plan? And the response was, oh no, Mike, you write the plan, we'll just bless it, don't worry. Well, that didn't work that way.
Sounds like expecting.
I mean, I could have written it, you got to tell my quicker, but, you know. So, what I'll propose is, I can draft up a, as Ed had just outlined, kind of the different topics, trying to put together maybe a workshop issue for each month as to what a major thing would be. One would be transportation routes, one would be the ag district, one would be the business districts, trying to get some input. And I'm sure the planning board is, and again, if you look at what we've done the last 3 years, it's just been cleaning up a lot of problems with the planning board. And we've gotten all the projects pretty much approved. The next, they have a gap of time right now in terms of projects. There's a couple small subdivisions, but there's nothing major on the horizon. So this would be the major project of the planning board for the next 6 months or 8 months or whatever.
I do appreciate the comment about keeping the ag district into the fall, so.
I think they're aware of that.
Okay.
Larry noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So officially then, do we have to either make a motion or to
Have at it, Mike.
to charge the planning board with coming up with a prioritized schedule? I think Mike took that on himself.
Yeah,
I know.
I'll draft something, again, on the staff of the
But
plan.
we have to have board approval, I mean, before we tell the planning board what has to be done, it has to come from the town board.
Guy, do you want an official charge,
For,
the planning board?
Yeah, do
I
we
don't
have
think
to?
they- I don't think we
RFP?
need
Yeah, it's just a,
to ask them to
within the
put it
scope of their
schedule.
duties, we're not actually contracting with our planning board. I think the RFP would end up being approved once it's developed, but I
So
think
as long as
that's
we
what
have
we're talking about. We're talking about basically an outline of how the project would be approached in terms of areas of concentration, potential timelines, that type of thing. I look at it more of an in-house
it's
project,
in-house work.
Yeah.
not going out for RFPs.
Well, as long as the board's comfortable moving forward, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. Is this a straw poll or is this a vote?
It's not, there's no motion.
No motion.
All right.
Okay.
You can ask them for a
I'm all for it.
recommendation and then consider it.
Okay.
So when you put out your draft, send it to us too.
Sure.
Okay. Next item up for bid is our engineering and planning coordinator, which has been discussed in the past. For the record, Michael has done an excellent job, and we hope that he stays on in different capacity or the same capacity. We'll see what's out there. But Katrina has approached me, and we have had a discussion about the engineering and planning coordinator. There is a need for something else in our code office, and that's not throwing stones at the people we have. We need to have help there. And
Yeah, I think everybody's been working very hard.
I agree.
Michael has incredible experience with the big projects, and you've been very involved in the capital planning. And we still need day-to-day support in that office. People are just exhausted. We need more body hours in there doing groundwork. And we're trying to figure out how to get the most shared use, for what we're going to spend on it, which is why we've talked about kind of emerging and somebody with some engineering, somebody who could help with some of the code extra work, as well as some of the planning within the office. So it's a hybrid position, which I think is why we're talking about it as an appointed position, not a
And
regular
we'll,
position.
as we pursue this further, a lot of times you find out what you need by finding out what you don't need.
Right.
And sometimes it's a process of elimination. Also, as we try to implement this, okay, what is the cost? What is the value? Where are the services done? Who pays for this? All those are good questions as we pursue this. Do you need just a part-time person there to help Lynn? Okay, what if you hired a full-time person? What if? And then in 5 years the building boom is gone. What happens then? So all these different questions need to be answered as we project forward. And I think what we do is we keep working on the job description, getting the feedback from the code officer and from Sue and everything. And Michael, I was going to have feedback on this as far as where you think we're going here, because Michael has a ton of experience as far as the planning goes. So having said all that, you know, do you have somebody else that does code? Do you have somebody else that does safety inspection? Do you have somebody else that can do stormwater? MS4, which we're going to talk about at our next meeting. Who does that? We farm that out now. Okay, that's an expense that maybe could have been done in-house. I don't know, let's find out. How many of these things can be done? Joe and I talked about this morning. We've talked in the past about these things. Okay, where can we absorb a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and make this cost effective? And also make this viable for the future. Is this the panacea that's going to? No, because in 5 years that may change again. Who knows what's going to happen as we continue our relationships with the villages? You know, where that is going to go. You know, we may have to do a joint venture of someone that just takes care of all the meters. I mean, the I&I. I mean, these are things that are coming up that maybe we have to do a shared service of that person, wherever that is. Because now measurement is so critical. So these are all questions to have out on the table, to have sincere discussions about and find out what we can do. So that's where we are with that right now as we continue to massage this. Any other comments before we go on the budget? Okay, budget time. One of the things is that with the budget, it's not here yet, but it's time to talk about preliminary schedules. If you look, for instance, in the annual updated document, it gives a schedule of when things need to be presented. We can have a schedule and do, for instance, a poll when all our board members are available to meet if we need to discuss that with the department heads. We can do that during the day, or do we do it at our working meetings? We've got a couple working meetings we can move in there July, August to have those discussions also. Like that. On the other hand, if you have questions, you can also reach out to the different department heads now. Sometimes we educate ourselves that way to see where we're going. Most of us have been through this, but not all of us have. So out of fairness, I think these are teachable moments not only for the newer members, but also to review from us what goes on. So that's one thing that I think we should approach. And I'll send out emails probably within the next month to see when the availability is on certain days for the future. You can't project too far in advance, but you can for some things. So we can start this dialogue now, maybe just chip away at it until it congeals. The other thing is that I think Joe made a great suggestion about a 5-year projection. We talked about that this morning. We've done the reserve policy, we've done the fund balance policy, which I'd like to review again. This might be the time to do it. We're in our need assessment for the highway department. We have a 5-year history of where things are in the past as we look at our budget. Now let's go to the future. Okay, some of these are projections, some of these are estimates, some can be pretty close, some can't. I mean, right now, like I said, we had a bad winter. Okay, you factor that in every year. Well, the more you use, the more money you get from the county. The less you use, the next year the less you get from the county. So it's a moving goalpost. So these are things I think are good. I did look at the modulars. I did not fall asleep because I read them, which I was surprised. But as you go through the cycle, you get this data, this data, this data, this data. Okay. In many ways, we've been doing this already in our heads. But now I think it's important that we put this on paper. And, okay, first year, let's tweak it as we move another year ahead. Let's tweak it and see where the trends are. I'm as concerned as anybody where our trends are going. I don't want all of a sudden hit a brick wall. But on the other hand, we're based on value. So that's where we're going with this. Since you came to us with this, do you want to comment on it?
Oh, I think that this is going to be very helpful, especially when determining that fund balance. Because, you know, what should the fund balance be? Well, it's hard to tell what we should be doing if we don't know what the future is going to be like. And when you have all these balls juggling in the air, it's hard to say that you haven't missed how they all collide at this one point. And that's what we need to be looking at, is what's it going to look like, what are our trends going to be.
It's the best guess.
It's the best guess.
To not have an expensive surprise.
We can't even do a 1-year budget that we don't have to change.
Right.
Well,
No one can, Joe.
No one can. And so, 5-year, it's going to be even more inaccurate, but it's going to start it's gonna start helping us see where our trends are and, see that brick wall before we come up to it, so we can try to work around it because we see it coming.
Where we are now is we're in a good position to be flexible, as tonight with the skid steer, for example. If we didn't have money in our budget for that's set aside someplace, we wouldn't even have that conversation. And this is why I think it's, for the people who have done this in the past, they've been very conservative about this, because we realize that to recoup that money is going to be painful for some people, and you don't want to be, as we would say, the first mouse.
I remember from board actions a long time ago, as Guy does, there was bonds for big pieces of equipment.
Yeah. So, having said that, I'd like to move on to the next one, if we're okay. That's our solar ordinance. It has been given to us by the planning board, the proposals, the recommendations. Is that something you want to review and discuss maybe at our next working meeting?
I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time to get through it at that point, because I'm looking at the stuff I got up at the planning conference. And I've got some booklets talking about solar laws and stuff, and I want to go back and forth and
Are
review
you
those.
talking about the regular meeting or the next first of the?
No, next working meeting. Now, our next working meeting, which
Maybe I can.
is a month. What I would do is I'll pencil in. If we're not comfortable yet, we can readdress it.
It's getting to be my busy time at work. So.
Yeah.
Hardest time.
There's actually an additional week in there because of the holiday, the 4th of July, so the next working meeting is July 11th as opposed to the first Wednesday of July.
So we'll have that discussion then, and if it's something that we're not ready to make that change or to make comments back and forth at a time, then we can chew on some more. I mean, it's not a pressing issue, but on the other hand, it was sent to us by the planning board.
Oh, I'm not trying to drag my feet on it. It's
We're
some
not
time to
thinking-
sit down. And
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the barbecue pavilion. I'm meeting with Dale Baker on Friday to see if they are interested in either making a contribution to this or having their father named after it. That's entirely up to them. There's no wrong answer to any of the things they say. But I also want to reach out to them first out of respect to do that. And this is something that has been proposed to be put basically against the fence. Where the barbecue pit is now, would be across that parking area against the fence. 16 feet out is what the proposal is. And this has been massaged numerous times by numerous barbecuers, as we have a variety of different ones out there. And just to give you an idea where those parking lines are, that's 18 feet. So you're going to move about 2 feet in, and you're going to go 48 feet towards Woodjets Drive. And what the proposal is from these barbecuers is that you're going to have water there because you need a washing station for health reasons. You're going to have electric there.
That was going to be my question. Yeah, nice.
You're going to have electric there also because Steve Cole says, well, since you're going electric, can you put some for our batting cages while we're there? Okay. But the other thing is that they propose gravel because Mr. Hatfield puts his on the ground and that would be too hot and melt the blacktop. So as we coordinate this, we couldn't put the pavilion under the power lines. That wouldn't meet code. So by moving this over and doing some calculations, it looks like we actually might pick up a few parking spots by putting the parking spots where the power lines are, where the barbecuer is now. Okay, and then do it as a diagram. And then that will be paved. Now, the Lansing Community Council has met and they are willing to be the fundraiser for it. Whether other volunteers build them, like the Lansing Lions who have done this in the past, or other people that have built, for instance, the Howell Pavilion down in Localville. There are people to do that. We're going to have to, if we do have volunteers, we're going to have to make sure that they're covered in case, God forbid, something happens to them. And how do we go about doing that? But those are all things we can coordinate. Right now, the estimate is about $6,000 for materials. Now, that may go up because the building season, my understanding is prices are starting to rise for a variety of different reasons. And that needs maybe perhaps to be recalculated. Well, these are things that I wanted, this is the FYI time. And then, I don't know if we need to move on to this perhaps at our next meeting or our next meeting after that. But let's get some more information. We still have to finish up the dugouts. They're just about done. Steve Cole's meeting with Patrick and Cuba Signs to see what kind of signage they want to put on there. And then they have to meet with the donors to make sure that they're comfortable with it also.
And then it will be presented to the Lions Club. Will you be doing that?
I'd love to, I mean, to do that, they've been very, Lion's been very generous, and so has other people in this area, so. Multiple reasons for the dugouts, obviously the protection for soccer, for also safety, a variety of reasons why they've been trying this for a long time, so I
I
think,
think they can have tournaments there now.
yes.
There's specific
Yes.
requirements.
Yeah, there's certain regs for it. Yeah. So, the last one I want to talk about is, brought to my attention about the flag policy. And someone reached out to me about flags. And I want to share something with you which I'm upset. This is something that's been going on right now, and it's in red and it's also in blue. And it says it's the HHNHH, which means hate has no home here. If you're in Lansing, I don't want you to feel like somebody hates you and nobody's going to protect you. I don't care who you are. You have a right to feel safe, and you have a right to express yourself in any manner as long as it's respectful to your neighbors, as long as you're not breaking any laws. And so I feel as though that this needs to get out there more. We can say the thing, remember we have the swastika and that whole bit, and that was very helpful. There's a lot of pain in that road. And talking to this one individual, there's a lot of concern. And I want Lansing to be welcome to everyone. I'm simply not judgmental, and anyone who is, shame on them. Because you're not in their shoes. I've talked to this person twice about this. We had a very heartfelt conversation. I told her I loved her at the end. And having said that, I'm in a position now where I can do something more than just speak. So these are things, and this is not a Methodist thing. This is something that actually was started by a 3-year-old, and it says that you can have conversations and you can disagree, but you don't hate each other. And these signs are available if other hate.
No. Okay, hold on.
And these would be put up by individuals?
Yes, these are you put yard signs, and these are red and blue. They're not political. It doesn't mean Republican or Democrat. They just have different colors and so. Let's get that right out front. Let's just take that right off the table. But yes, these you see them sometimes. I think you see them on there's one on Drake Road. There's a couple more elsewhere, and they're free. I think this organization is paying for them. And my thing is that we need to send a very strong message to everyone in Lansing, the whole Lansing community, is that we're all in this together. So anyways, how do we go about that? Okay, here's a start. The other thing is that the LGBTQ. No, this is what I was saying. I want to get this right. I think it's LGBTQ wanted to put their flag. Now, our flag, for the record, our flag rope was broken in the last few days. So let's get that right out front also. This is not like somebody cut us, so we're not going to do this, okay? And my whole thing is, as I talked to her on the phone, Joanna, I don't want to mention names too much here, but how do you go about this to protect the town, okay, for other things? If you do it for one, how you do it for the other. To me, it's not about this, it's about the policy. Mm-hmm. So if we somehow come up with a policy that is generic but also is concise, is that about as oxymoron as I can get here? How do we go about that so that we show we're a loving, caring, inclusive community and have it that? So does that mean, for instance, I think, do you go by federal regulations? Do you go by state regulations? Do you go by town regulations? You make up your own resolutions. I talked to Jason Leifer about this also, what he did in his. They just put a resolution together. My whole thing is that if you do it for one, I don't want to have a hate group come in and say, we want to put our flag up also. Because then what you've done is, like they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't want that.
Speech, yes, can cut both ways.
Yes, so having said that, this has to
This
be,
is the town's speech, and the town's saying we're supporting this, and we're not going to support a Nazi flag, or at least I'm not going to. I don't think you're going to either.
let's get that out front too,
Yeah,
okay? Yes.
But I think we want our policy or resolution to restate that hate has no home here, that we are supportive of all our people in our town.
Mhm.
And
Right, but I think there's two different statements, and I like the positive ones more than the negative. The hate has no home is saying we don't like this.
Yes.
But I like the idea of saying, you're welcome, you're part of us, yes. And, I think what you're looking for is some kind of policy to say, this is what the town, this is one of the town's beliefs, this is one of the town's unifying some things.
I'm not ignoring you, I just want to get the right language here, because there's more to it than we don't tolerate hate. But we keep talking, Chuck.
No, I'm just saying your sign there says hate has no, that's kind of, this is what we don't want, and the flag is representing what we do want, is inclusiveness for this group specifically. And what I'm hearing you say is, what kind of policy can we put together that it's fairly clear what kind of inclusiveness we're going to put up and not have to worry about a Nazi flag coming forward. It's like, well, it kind of fits your policy, and that's a problem.
Is this for 4th of July, and where would these flags go?
They can get permits.
No, this was a flag that wanted to be put up in our,
They turn around.
because Pride Month is June. So they wanted to put the flag up in June.
In front of the town hall, you mean?
Yeah.
Correct. And of course, there's having read through the 38 pages also of American flag, what the rules and regs are, is that the American flag comes first. For instance, the POW flag, as you see in Dryden, that's underneath it.
Oh, so this would even go on the town's flagpole?
Well, we're trying to find a policy where we can do that, but not open the door for other stuff. So if I can just give you some background, you say the hate has no home here was started in Chicago by a group of neighbors who have since spread across the United States and beyond. The Hate Has No Home Here project seeks to declare neighborhood residents, businesses, and places of community free from hate, speech, and behavior, providing safe places for conversation, work, learning, and living. So even though by having a negative gives that connotation, as you broaden this, you see that it actually it's love-based, not hate-based. He says, this project has no political affiliation. It is meant to remind us of what it means to be American. Celebrate. Our diversity enriches us. We can disagree with each other without hating each other. Together we can create an atmosphere of hope. This was also, this slogan was imagined by a third grader in kindergarten. So, having said that, I think a little more background of what is really driven. This is love-based, not hate-based. But I think what it's doing is attacking hate and actually saying, no, we don't tolerate that. But I think everyone likes to talk about it. I want to do something about this. And I think the board feels the same way, that it's enough is enough. So how we go about that, what I would like to do is give our homework assignments. I don't know, Guy, we'll be leaning on you a little bit here, what generic policy we can do here. But I'd like to have something for the board at our next meeting and see how we can go from there. Your comments, please, because you're the legalese.
You're treading sort of into those same sticky First Amendment issues that came up in relation to how you determine whether someone qualifies or doesn't qualify for a peddling permit. If you're going to allow Group A to fly their flag, but not allow Group B, what's the basis for the distinction? Is it the message? Are you regulating the actual speech that the flag is intended to convey, or is there some objective, rational basis for the distinction that is not simply based on, I support what they're saying and I'm against what they're saying? Because if it's down to that, then you're actually regulating speech. So you have that issue, then you have the secondary issue, which would even prevent you from regulating speech if you're going to create, for lack of a better term, a public forum on the part of your public grounds. Right now, contrary to what most people believe, there is no right of free speech at a town or village or county meeting. Privilege of the floor is just that, it's a privilege. It's not mandated, it's not in the open meetings law, it's nowhere. But most people do it because of the long-standing tradition. You can run into problems if you're going to regulate what people are allowed to say during privilege of the floor based upon the nature of the message, whether it's actually what they say or what you believe they may say. Both of that starts to fall into regulated speech. So if you're going to approve flag A and not approve flag B, I'd like to know what the basis for that determination is going to be so that we're not walking headlong into the next case that makes the headlines somewhere.
Well, we've got, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different municipalities in Tompkins County who are flag or rainbow flag.
Mhm.
Do they have policies?
The one in Dryden just put forth a resolution recognizing Pride Month.
Mhm.
That was it. That's my understanding. I hope I got that correct. Some of the other municipalities were concerned about policy
Mhm.
for that reason. I guess at a board meeting, it is a privilege to speak. Is it a privilege to speak on town land?
Certain parts of a municipality are often or traditionally recognized as public forums, your sidewalks, within certain limitations, your streets. So they can stop people from protesting inside of the halls of the Supreme Court, but they can't stop people from protesting on the public sidewalks outside of the Supreme Court building. So certain areas of the town, we've already more or less created what would be called a quasi-public forum, the community center, for example, where we allow different groups to go in pursuant to an application and a permit approval, to go in and use that for meeting or private purposes as opposed to governmental purposes.
So a flagpole, is that a continuation of the town hall? Is that a continuation of that forum area?
I really would want to hazard a guess at what a flagpole technically is in terms of speech, but if you're going to conduct speech on a flagpole beyond that which is mandated by law, such as the state or the U.S. flag, I'd like to see something that says that you're making your decisions on a content-neutral basis and not a messaging basis.
If you had a separate area for this, like the community center, like they have banners that they put up, like for instance, they have banners for the Lions Club, they have banners for whatever, which are by approval of the town, I think, are they not? I mean, can you regulate
I don't
that?
know how they put up there.
Yeah,
So you'd have to have permission to do that, as opposed to
it's not
an
just
entitled right.
a random public.
So if you had a place by the community center where you could do this, and still allow people to put a flag or a banner there.
Right, but you don't want some group to come and say, we want the rebel flag to be put up.
That's my concern, so.
And that's
but
I'm listening to what Guy's saying, is we have to have some kind of rational thing. What I'm kicking around in my head is celebrating those protected classes, which would be a description of what we're trying to do. So, you know, on February, we could fly some flag if there was one celebrating Black Pride Month, and you know, Women's Month I think is March, and Gay Pride is June, and that's our criteria. Is we will do something like that, which is, you know, limiting it. It's giving it kind of a description that doesn't open the doors for everything.
Well, I think you make a good point. It's validated by something, whether it be federal law, state, something validates it that, okay, what determines if it's Women's Month? Is that a federal, is that a state? All I'm saying is that I'm looking for some continuity here so that we can include people that feel like they're not welcome here, but they are. And how do you do this? You defend it.
That's what I'm saying, that protected class status would fit with the gay pride stuff. It would open it up for women's pride and Black pride. And
Individuals with disabilities.
Yeah, disability. There are things, and I don't have a problem with the flag for each of those, though I don't know if there is one. That I would be okay with. The other examples we're giving wouldn't fit in there, and so it wouldn't have that problem. Is this sounding at all reasonable, guys?
So you might pretend then that the Daughters of Betsy Ross don't have a flag?
Daughters of the American Revolution.
Right, I'm just saying, there's
Well, there's probably a flag, but are they a protected class is the question.
Probably not protected either.
no,
And
actually. Depends on whether you're finding equality of opportunity or quality of result. But no, citizens in this country are not protected equally. They're supposed to be, but they're not.
Well, that was right.
I know.
Okay.
But there are hundreds and hundreds of protected classes.
Well, then there's hundreds and hundreds of flags that could be put up.
In theory.
So who determines, or what determines what goes?
Well, you'd have to see what's been challenged and what's survived. I mean, what if it was, you can fly it if it's a flag that's been officially approved by the state or federal government. So PFW, MIA, I don't know what other flags have been officially approved, but, you know, I'm sure there are some, because there are some that are flown at the state capitals and at various sites in Washington DC that are not U.S. flags.
Could you widen there? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it maybe, could it be something where the town specifically recognizes a particular celebratory month of some sort that has cultural relation to the town? I think you're getting back close to that awfully subjective standard, but at least there you have the board saying, we've approved this and that's why it's there.
Could you do it where you have it's been, for validated by federal, state, or local municipalities? So now you fall into the group where your neighboring municipalities also have a say, and it's been recognized by them. We will recognize that also. Can you put that wide lens in there so that now you've included? Because I don't know if the LGBTQ is recognized state, federal.
It's recognized by the UN. I don't know if it's been recognized. I would guess it was recognized federally. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
But maybe use that as your criteria for now to say if something's been recognized federally, if it falls in that category, at least you have some parameters.
Well, depends on something Guy was saying. What if the board were to say, we want to celebrate Gay Pride Month, and we want to demonstrate that by flying a flag outside the town hall?
And then when they're, right, I think
Well,
that might be a basis upon which to proceed, but do you open your door to whatever the National Bacon Week? Do you open your door to the flag of the National Pork Producers and they want to know what the procedure is for getting an approval?
I think that could be at the will of whatever existing board there is, you know, whether.
Any resolution could be overturned, as we
Yeah.
know. Or enhanced, either way.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, there's got to be an approved list somewhere that can tell us whether or not a reasonable number of flags are usable without us making a content-based, subjective, allegedly discriminatory opinion. There's got to be that would be the place to start.
That's the
What
place to
flags
start.
have been approved by, let's say, nationally recognized organizations like the U.S. government, the state of New York, the United Nations.
There comes Google.
Right.
Funny, I was going to wait till afterwards, but go ahead, Joe.
We're hitting a wall on what we know in this.
Well, I think we've got
Maybe
some-
someone out there has some more information than.
Yeah, I think we've got some good parameters
Let's
as
work
far
on
as
it.
what we're trying to address.
And talk about it.
And the fact is that if you do want some of these, they're available for you also, for this, the HH and HH. They are available for you also. This, like I said, this is not a Methodist thing, but they're available for Methodist church. This is for everyone. But that starts a conversation of why we're doing this, because we have a group of people that feels they're unsafe. And I think we need to send a very strong message that they should be felt that they should be safe. And if that's the case, then if this is our way to do this. This is what's been asked, that they would feel that they are safe if the flag was flown. Then we should give that, I believe, serious consideration how we can implement that.
Did that come from the interfaith dinner people?
No.
Is it a different group?
Yeah.
You ought to be extremely cautious. As he says, it's a very, very slippery slope, a very steep one, and just be very careful.
Well, and we may explore this and find out this
We
is.
don't have time to.
We don't. This is going to make the town vulnerable. That does not mean that we don't like that, but perhaps a sign like this
That's neutral enough.
sends the same message.
We can put that.
And what I'm saying is that you're absolutely right. I walk through this very carefully when I do this. But on the other hand, as a town, I think we should try to address this and say, look, we have exhausted our resources trying to do this. And we find out that we may not have to do this, this, and this, but we show some support that we are anti-hate. And you fall into that group that if you think you are a hate target, we totally do not support that one bit. So here's an option also, but it's also one that we can justify by saying we have explored this, we're extremely careful that we don't make the town vulnerable. And that's my main concern. But do you also send out a message that you're also against hate? And the fact that we're discussing
Why does
this.
it have to be on the flag? I like the idea better than banner when I do the flag. The flag right now is a touchy subject.
It is.
I don't think it changes any of the considerations the guy's saying. Remember, he put the sign, it's still the town saying it.
Not necessarily. I mean, if a banner goes up, people don't get as emotionally upset as seeing something under the American
Well, it is
flag.
like the community center, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have certain restrictions
Well,
that we have to be
I totally
carefully
agree.
guided by, so we don't open ourselves up to being forced to put up something that would then exacerbate the hate and the feelings of oppression.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, if you have a certain group of people that are gathering down at the park, you put your banner up.
Sure.
And that is there for multiple purposes. Now, granted, it's on town property. But it's also understood that you do that because it is a sign that is gathering and you're justified.
But I think the policy we're talking about, we should, even if we don't use the municipal flagpole, we need some sort of policy even for the park, because certain flags cause people to have fear. So I mean, I think that going back to the message of, if your symbol is about putting down or excluding, then we can't hang it in a public area.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen, not the license plate, but the thing that you might put your license plates in.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
supporting the Confederate flag.
right, yeah.
And I find that offensive personally, but people have the right, I guess, to put it in the car and even put a Confederate flag on the car. But I don't want to see one.
Hanging from our pavilion. Right.
Yes.
Ed, I would have another concern now. If you use this banner as a town and promote hate has no home here, and that makes a person feel safe enough to move into your community, and they still experience a hate crime because you make that the official town position, does that open you up to litigation because you made the person feel safe and they weren't safe? In a very litigious society, that's something to consider.
I don't know, I look back at what happened with the swastika in the playground, and I think the town really rallied and made a strong statement right away saying, this is not acceptable. And I think the same thing, you know, if we see something like that, we need to step forward and say, no, this is not acceptable in our community, just like we did the last time.
That's what leadership's about.
I agree, but placing a banner up is almost like raising a flag. Having those in individual lawns is something totally different. It shows the community support. It's not an official town position.
Well, I'll quote there was a Supreme Court case, Tinkner versus some school district, I forget, in the 60s. And it was about whether some kid could wear a protest band about the Vietnam War. And the Supreme Court ruled, and the schools argued that it would be disruptive if he was making this statement in the schools, and we don't want to be making this statement because it causes kids to be unruly, it'll make it harder to control the class. And the Supreme Court said, the problem is not the kid making the statement, the problem is all these other kids. And they allowed him to have his armband saying, you know, you got to control the other kids. And I think this is the same thing. We don't want people to feel like they can't move into this community because they're not safe. And so we want to make a statement. We welcome you, you're safe here, and all of us can have something bad happen to us in this community. Hopefully not, but it's totally possible. And I think what's important is that we stand behind that statement, if you're safe here, and we're going to enforce it. If someone steps over that line for anybody, for any reason, we're going to come out as a community and say, no, everybody's welcome here.
I think as a town board, we have been exploring issues here so that we can find out what our parameters are. And whatever our action is justifiable. And there's certain things that we would like to do as a town, but simply can't because of the reasons expressed. And this is where we find out where our limits are, what the reason is. Whatever that is, we've already started the thorough process of exploring it. So we find out why we try to address the issue. This is what we found out. We did the same thing on a different thing with the soliciting law. And I'm not with a soliciting law, where I'm not minimizing what we're talking about tonight. I'm simply saying that how do you enforce? We explored that pretty thoroughly, and we found out at the end of the day it's best to leave it alone. I'm not advocating that. I'm simply saying let's explore what our parameters are here, so that when we do go forward as a board, we can justify what our actions are and say, look, we've addressed this. We try to say this, this, and this, and this. And at the end of the day, we have to be concerned about all our citizens, understand that, but like you said, people are sue crazy now.
They are.
And as Guy says, if you go to court, you've already lost. But at least we throw it on a table, we'll have more discussion on this. In the meantime, if people want to do something in their own yards, they have a way to do that. So I don't think this has been a waste of anyone's time. But let's address, as we do with everything, this board does a lot of the hard work. So if no one else has any more comments.
One thing that I would be very cognizant of is how do you actually enforce whatever you're going to do?
And that's a great, I hate to say it, you're in my head, because then I have to say how's the echo. But having said that, you're absolutely right. If you say there's our position is there's no hate here, how do you enforce the fact that somebody has a hate crime besides at the law enforcement agency, which is already there? Right. How do you do that as a town if you don't have a town police force? But once again, this is why we throw it out on the table to say, okay, can we actually implement this or not? And these are the reasons why. As opposed to say, oh, whatever. No, we're going to address this, and maybe there's some dialogue that comes from this, and maybe somebody else comes up with an idea where we can implement that. And I've always said this before, that when you're brainstorming and you're having open discussion with no judgment, sometimes the third person takes the idea and says, well, these can't happen, but what about this? And all of a sudden, there you are. Well, those are other excellent points, is that how do you enforce it? So anyways, good. I think it's been a good discussion tonight as far as that goes. I don't have anything for executive session.
You're kidding.
And I said that while you're still sitting down. And I think we can adjourn.
Wait, there's a finger.
Can I just give you since Dan's here, we'll do a public service announcement. Today I got an email from TCAT, and I emailed it to all the town board members, but they're planning on having a meeting to discuss additional services in the town of Lansing. As you know, I've been attending their meetings, trying to encourage additional things. So they've actually scheduled a meeting for tomorrow at Cornell to try to get some of the people that are currently on the bus. But a week from tonight at 5 p.m. at the Lansing Town Hall, they're going to have a public meeting to talk about additional service during the day and also additional service during the weekends. So hopefully we can get the word out to people and they can weigh in as to what they think is good and not. So
It's progress.
we're making slow but steady.
I used to say around one miracle at a time.
Yeah, baby steps.
Baby steps.
Now, this is important, this is for the fall schedule, for whenever they change it over. And what they're looking at right now is the idea of doing a loop through Lansing instead of going all the way down to the city. So they can run that bus a couple of 3 times instead of just once.
Perfect.
And then just drive everybody at the mall where they can pick up a bus that will reach Cornell or down to the city, wherever else they want to go. Which causes people to have to transfer to that. But if you're going to downtown from Lansing now, you have to go to Cornell first and then down to downtown, so it might be quicker.
Well, change is difficult, but once you do it,
Well, that's why they're doing the right thing. So I think it's a, you want it.
yeah. Good.
Are you adjourning the meeting?
Yes.
Move that we adjourn.
You don't have to, right, Laura? You don't have to move to adjourn.
No, you don't.
And you say I don't listen to you.
It's been on